everyone, we're back in the garage and this time we're here to make a hobby horse. I recently learned that my niece has been using a cardboard tube and pretending that it's a horse, so I want to get her one step closer to a real horse by making a little wooden one for her. So let's get started.
To start things off, I drew this horse head shape on my tablet and then printed it out. To get the size I needed, I ended up printing it across 4 pieces of paper, and then I just cut it out and taped them together. It was actually a little bit tricky to get a shape that looked believable as a horse head, but I think it looks fairly realistic.
All right, there she is. Let me be the first to say, this piece is way bigger than it needs to be.
It's true, this piece is way too big, but it was the only 1x12 I could find. It just also happens to be 12 feet long. So technically, we could make an entire herd of horses with this if we wanted to. Or if we royally screw up, there's plenty of material to start over with. I thought it would be cool to incorporate one of the existing knots on this board as the nose, so I picked my favorite one and then traced the horse head shape around it. Josh and I got to work on this project together, which was really nice. Starting with just managing this massive board while I cut it down at the miter saw, we also took turns cutting out the final shape on the bandsaw. This piece actually ended up being super collaborative between Josh, myself, as well as my niece and my sister later on, which really was probably my favorite part of the build. And once I had this horse head cut out, it was feeling dangerously close to a Godfather reference. But I promise you, this horse has a much happier, much more kid-friendly ending. Somewhere along the way, our little horse also suffered an injury and got this dent, so I tried out a trick I'd seen online. I laid a damp piece of paper towel over the dent and then hit it with a hot iron, and the wood swelled right back up. It's certainly not invisible, but it's definitely a good trick to have in your toolbox. After that, I softened all of the sharp edges so no one would get hurt, and then it was time to drill the hole for the dowel, which required a little bit of creative problem solving.
Now that I have my horse head into the shape that I'm happy with and I've done the first round of sanding, it's time to attach the dowel. So I bought this 7/8 dowel that's really nice and sturdy, but not so big that it's going to compromise the strength of the horse head when I go in to drill the hole to attach it. And so I'm going to line it up here and just figure out exactly what kind of angle I want it to come in at, and then we'll head over to the drill press and get it drilled out.
But once I took it over to the drill press, I realized that it wasn't going to be angled the right way to get this dowel hole drilled properly. So all I did is I made a really crude but usable jig from some scrap that I had laying around, just to help me get that horse head angled the right way. It was likely because the piece wasn't actually secured to the drill press, but this hole ended up a little bit wider than it should have been. Luckily, it was an easy fix.
So when I go to put the dowel in like this, you can see there's a fair amount of play there. So all I did to the other side is I just added a few layers of masking tape, and watch how this changes the fit. First of all, it's difficult to even get it in. That's not even in all the way. And look at that. It's not going anywhere. that doesn't have any glue in it or anything, so I'm gonna be able to work with that for sure.
Since pine is notorious for taking stain in a really blotchy way, I started with a coat of preconditioner. I've also found that pine does better with gel stain than it does with water-based stain, so that's what I decided to use. The stain I had on hand was actually a little bit darker than I wanted the horse to be, so I only let it sit for a few seconds before wiping it off. Then the result was this really nice, warm, light brown that still let the grain shine through. At this point, I actually had to head out of town for work, so Josh finished the piece off with some finish, which he forgot to film, and then he glued the dowel into place in time to take this out to my niece. As I mentioned before, we really wanted my niece to be involved with the build, so we took her to the craft store and let her pick out whatever yarn she wanted for the mane and something to use for the eyes. She actually took this task very seriously and eventually landed on some excellent choices. Once we were back from the store, my sister and I braided the yarn my niece had chosen and then attached it to the horse with some hot glue.
Yes.
And can we just shout out the fact that this learning tower I built for her a few years ago is still going strong? And after some strong creative direction from my niece on eye placement.
You want to put the eye right here? Okay.
We eventually settled on a look that we all liked and glued those on too.
Okay, is that right? Is that right?
I think so.
It looks a little ridiculous at the moment. How's that, honey? Does it look good?
Oh, wow.
You want the eye? Yeah? Okay, we can do the same thing on the other side.
She looks great, don't you think?
While this wasn't a technically challenging build, it was really fun to work on something so collaborative and let my niece be really involved in shaping the final look of this project. And sometimes a simple and fun project is really all you need. And maybe one day she'll pass the reins to her new little sister. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.